How's it going, everybody? So I am in process of making a series of videos about a particular topic that's been pretty relevant to me over a few decades. And this one happened to be pretty relevant, so I figured I'd share it. I share a lot of different perspectives and stuff like that. A lot of content, stuff that's somewhat serious, somewhat not serious, and things of that nature. The internet is an interesting place because it can share the innermost, deepest personal secrets or personal expressions that may not be very savory for society. Another thing is the issue with nuance. There's not really much nuance in respect to these thoughts. They just kind of gush out, and they're not really curated. Like if you were talking to somebody face to face and you'd be like, would that be appropriate to talk about? And then you might fashion it in a way that might be more palatable, or in a way that wouldn't evoke offense, especially one that's offense that's very quickly. And unfortunately, the conflict that has come from these inner dialogues has come to the surface over the past few years, and has been coming out to be a bit more at brush with each other, with different people, political ideologies, and things of that nature. So why did I make this video? I have to make this video for myself personally to give context to the stuff I'm saying. Now, it's not going to be the full context, because if I have to explain this stuff, it's going to be very long, and I have to make a whole script and stuff like that to try to fully explain it. But for me personally, I used to live, I was born here in the Midwest of Chicago. Went to Wisconsin during my formative years of my early teens, and then I made my way back over there to Chicago. And during those formative years, my accent is more Wisconsin-like. I have a blend of culture, but pretty much like I come off as more Wisconsin, or more suburbanite, or as some people may say, white. And so that had a factor into when I came back to Chicago. It was more so to a more tougher area, like the place of Inglewood in Chicago. And mind you, I'm a homebody. I've always been a homebody. I was not really out there really getting engaging with stuff like that. But I had small conflict there as well. But in regards to the lady from my previous video, she mentioned that she had negative experiences from her own folks. And I empathize with that perspective, because I have also had issues with my own folks. Often in the place where I'm at, there is a lot more issues with my own folks. And I would say, rather than, people like white folks or anything like that. But that's not entirely true. Throughout my life, I've had a lot of conflicts with all different types of people. Some of them more mild, some of them more intense, or more unwarranted. One second. So I can't necessarily say that my experiences with my own people would prefer me to go to a person or people that's not me, because they even have their own issues. And being in a place like Chicago, where it is known to be one of the most segregated areas, you have a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of presumptions about the other group. So you have a lot of, like, I wouldn't call it sneak dissing, but it's a lot of cautious behavior, to the point where it's just cold. It's a cold culture, let's say. And so the lady who speaks about this this conflict with her own people, but also a more preference to other people, I've experienced that before. Being in Wisconsin, I didn't really have a lot of like cold behavior, and mind you, that's just probably because Wisconsin just has a lot more warmer atmosphere. People, random strangers, will talk to you out of nowhere. And I recently came from Chicago to Wisconsin, and I'm sorry, the opposite. Came to Wisconsin from Chicago, and it was just as warm, just as nice. Even my ex lived in somewhere up north. You know, I don't want to put her business out there and stuff like that, but it makes perfect sense because she's a positive person to be around, and she's a very, very delightful person. Which kind of reminds me, it's another whole separate topic. I just kind of didn't want to put her out there for the sake of her privacy, but it really goes to show that where you are from, and I'm sorry for the sirens, really has an impact on how you interact with other people. And sometimes if you've experienced some positive stuff from other people, you'll have a more preferential desire to be around those people more than, let's say, another group. And sometimes that other group might be your own people. And it's sad because that shouldn't be the case. Your average is, if I can tell you from, I made a graph once before, and it was about like the perceived dating chart of I guess something people or something like that. I think I still have it. And the idea is just mainly that in dating, and some of that stuff was backed up by actual stats. There's the graph I made was pretty much like a presumption about, based off my experiences, about who gets what and who prefers what and stuff like that. And why did I mention that? It seems to be black men are second highest and black women are like the lowest in that graph. Now that could be societal stuff, you know, and gender is just viewed differently depending on I'm sorry, dating is viewed differently depending on gender. But in terms of like just a racial perspective, I just have a perception that unfortunately people look like me and people in the black race of America aren't viewed too positively, you know. And I'm not saying, and for me, I don't like to be mean to people, but at the same time, being in this culture that's very tough, probably has, you know, people went through a lot of stuff. They develop a cold demeanor, and to survive that, you have to kind of adapt. And for myself, I fought it a long time because, again, I during my formative years, I was in Wisconsin. You know, everybody was nice, and I wasn't always a perfect person at being nice, but I was nice. You know, I developed that culture, and so I approached people how I would approach somebody in Wisconsin, and it just taught me that a very slow lesson, that approaching people is just it's a incompatibility depending on where you're from, you know. So when you're nice to people down here in Chicago, they are a little standoffish because they don't, that's just not how, that's not the culture, you know, here. So I have a preference for good people, and I say that I understand the reality that our people generally have a lot of trauma connected to themselves, and it could be a bunch of other things, you know, and that could be a whole can of worms that I could describe in another video. But I don't believe personally there's all of us, you know, and I have to say that because I think if I meet a good person, I'm going to respond back in a good way. If I'm going to meet a bad person, a standoffish person, I'm going to try to respond in kind because, you know, if you're not giving me warm energy and stuff like that, not even energy, but just like a warm demeanor, then you're teaching me that you don't want that back, you know. So it's tough, you know, race and society and how they dictate and those assumptions and stereotypes and things of that nature. This is a very long video. It's almost hitting the 9-minute mark. But I'm saying this because I have to give context, because I don't want people to sit here and just dig on this woman that I mentioned in the video and people say all sorts of excuses to deny the reality that our people can be really tough on us, you know, our own people. Another thing is just not to say that, oh, this group A or group B or group over here or group over there is better, because they have their own issues. And sometimes, you know, they might be better, quote unquote, in the ways you like, but they may not be as thoughtful or sensitive, at least some of them in that particular group. But like I said in my video, not all of us fit the stereotype of loud, angry, this, that, and the third. And some of us just want to be given a chance, you know, just like we would give you a chance, you know. And I say watch that woman's video because it kind of, I agree with a lot of stuff. I identified with a lot of stuff because she said, like, you know, black people might be really snippy, really nasty to our own folks, but will be very pleasant and nice to other people. I've experienced that. I've seen that. I've seen where the one person was snippy at me, and then in the next breath was very nice to a person who didn't look like me. And yes, could be trauma, all that other stuff. But again, I didn't deserve it personally because I didn't do anything to deserve it or warrant it. So as I'm wrapping up, I want people to understand from this video, this takeaway is that not every black person is like that. We have a lot of nuance. We have a lot of history that explains the behavior. And just because an explanation doesn't justify the behavior, we all have our problems. And that's particular to us, our culture, our community, our economic standing, our class, and things of that nature that has to be personally worked out. Just because I'm a black person and there's a history of racism that I will admit, because I'm not going to deny that, doesn't mean that it justifies me to treat somebody nasty. And that's just my opinion. That's just what I believe. And people will have their beliefs that will be like, no, get over it, all that other stuff. That's your opinion. You're just going to have to keep that to yourself, or just understand that that's your opinion and my opinion is my opinion. But I need people to understand this, is that we're different. We're all different. And depending on where you go, we'll have certain cultures that lean to certain levels of warmness and other parts that's leaning to other levels of coldness. Like if you go to maybe, I've never been, but I've heard New Yorkers are really tough. Chicagoans are also pretty tough. They, you know, I'm a Chicagoan. They're not very warm like that. They're not going to say hello and stuff like that. They will walk past you like you don't exist. Wisconsin's very nice. You know, I went to Kentucky once. They were pretty nice people. But, yeah, just want to let you know, just have some nuance. You know, be thoughtful. Stop using autopilot. Stop listening to these politicians so much where they blanket statement minority figures or your favorite political pundit who says that one group is great and these other groups are not great, or, you know, the immigrants are this, or the poor people are this, or this, that, and the third. I just want to encourage you guys, I understand maybe you've had negative experiences that have warranted your beliefs, but I just want to encourage you, give people a chance, because not everybody's going to be as you expect. And I understand you have experiences and those experiences are valid, but you should just take that extra mile to not so much just throw yourself out there to get hurt, but just be mindful that, hey, not everybody's going to be as I expect. You know, not everybody's going to be a mean person. Not everybody's going to be a nice person. Because I think if you go the other way and be like, yo, I'm going to go completely for this group, you're setting yourself also to fail and maybe be willing to take a lot more hits just because it's not the main aggressor or people who would hurt you. So I just want to encourage some mutual thinking on both ends. We're people at the end of the day. We're people at the end of the day. We're complicated. We're nuanced. We got a lot of stuff. But just think. I think that's it. Just use your brain. Be mindful of people. And even for myself, this is advice I'm going to say for myself. Don't take it personally. You know, this is something I am still wrestling with because I'm a rather sensitive person. But don't take it personally. You know, I guess that's it. I wish I could have a lot more to say, like compassion, but this is all I have, you know. So for anybody that gets confused with the rest of my content, it won't always be about heavy topics like this, but some topics I will share because they just hit my beliefs, you know. And oh, here's another thing. Please, if you do not understand racism, learn. There's too many people, that's not so much in my channel, but it's people that I've seen. They make claims about racism. They don't really know what they're talking about. They probably have never, ever have seen some racism or some stuff that's like, is that particularly to me? You know, really read up on that, because I'm really getting, it's just really irritable when I hear people talk about racism. They don't know what they're talking about. They've never experienced something that was like particular to them, you know. And maybe they have, but I'm just saying, like, it's just people say stuff and it shows their lack of understanding. So I just want to encourage you to learn on that end. But again, we're all human. Please use your brain. Please have some passion. Please have some understanding. Don't be a punching bag for people. Do what you got to do in regards to honoring the culture. Don't take it personally. And that's all I got.